Tuesday, May 12th, 9:30 p.m. What's up, everybody? Checking back in on the markets. Did not watch too much today. Looks like we had a little bit of a down day. We did have some relief. On your screen is currently Datadog. We will come back here in a second. But popping up on SanDisk, we can see some sort of relief. Certainly not a breakdown. Like I said, I did not watch the price action throughout the day, which typically gives me a better feel than just looking at the end of the day prints and whatnot. But some sort of relief. Like as we said in the last clip, we felt like it was running kind of hot. Certainly no breakdown here. But again, overall, later into the year, we had the CPI number. I think it was CPI. One of the inflation numbers come out at like 3.8%, hotter than expected. What a surprise. We have a war going on in one of the most like densely energy concentrated place for oil shipping, and we have pricing increasing. Because it's not just the oil, it's not just the memory chips, it's just transporting everything is going up, so everything's going to cost more. That's a big rocket science. That's a huge big brain move. And I just saw our wonderful supreme leader, Donald, say he does not care about anybody's finances, and he does not respect the law or care about the Constitution. Again, I do not have constitutional rights. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution remains violated, destroying my life, health, and property in its entirety. I say it simply because it's true, and I say it in every video because it hasn't stopped and it's not going to. It's fun watching your parents get older and never have a career, never have a family yourself. It's always fun to realize the American dream. But we push on because my life's ticking away anyway, and no one gives a flying fuck. But our great supreme leader, Donald's heading over to China to meet with a way more democratic leader, Xi Jinping. And again, talk about what I'm not really sure. Carnival Donald just kind of run around doing whatever he wants because the United States Constitution is as real as Santa Claus. I actually think it's less real than Santa Claus because Santa at least brings you some presents, even if it's your parents or Carlos from down the street. I know we've been referencing a lot of Carloses lately. But there are no laws, so hey, I'm trying to make a finance video about trading stocks when you can't meaningfully trade without a risk tolerance, and you can't. I always just remember, genuinely, I went into Mr. Montanero's personal finance class and it was like, don't spend more than you have a budget. Step 1 of having a budget, have income. My entire life, no income. Awesome. But Donald's heading on over. That's our major stimulus for this war. I don't really know the geopolitics of what the meeting is supposed to be, or I'm sure it's going to be a summit. It's going to be a big one. But over trade, I'm sure, over Taiwan, I'm sure, and over Iran, I'm sure. And again, I just keep thinking into the future. Think about 1,000,000 years from now. Is math going to be different? How about 1,000,000,000 years? How about X amount of days in the future? So what China does, what the United States does, what Russia does, what whoever does, just like, you're just kind of stealing from me. I really don't take that lightly in any way, shape, or form. Besides not disrupting the global flow of the world, I want as much crime prosecuted as possible. Because this is the most atrocious shit ever. All of analysis is proven, completed with lecture videos sitting on the internet, and we continue to lie, cheat, and steal about all of science, causing profound death and destruction. And if you are lying or a part of that syndicate, that racket in any way, shape, or form, you are responsible, both legally and morally. There is no difference. But that's the major stimulus. We got some sort of relief, no real big movements, nothing super exciting overall. And so we did pop up on CF. Again, that is now on watch. We are above 130 for the close. Because again, there has to be some sort of resolution, and at least a headline towards a resolution will give us some sort of drawdown here. We want, hopefully, like the ideal, we will have a decently high conviction if this stays above 130 past the dividend. Again, I don't want to short it before May 14th, which would be Thursday. Because again, as we talked about yesterday, the ex-dividend date, that whole accounting stuff is not, or like it's not clear. It's poor. Along with basically everybody, and words have meaning, whether you're talking about jurisprudence, whether you're talking about finance, whether you're talking about physics. Academia is just lying in its entirety, and then they give out licensures to say, hey, this person's competent, and in reality, they're huge fucking bitches, like Tim Dune, like James Ryan, like James Gilbert, like Gary Lewis Jr., just some people that come to mind that have direct professional legal obligations to promote science or to enforce the law. And of course, nobody cares because once again, nobody gives a flying fuck about the law here in America with freedom. And so if we can get through May 14th, pass into the ex-dividend date, again, I just hate that term so much, then we will look to short this. Any sort of resolution headline will definitely give us another drop down into this like 115 area for sure. If it's a meaningful resolution, lower for sure. Once we get through earnings, I don't see, again, there's no momentum in the fertilizer space, believe it or not. Regardless, there is huge momentum still in the memory chips. Again, besides that, no real overall market movements that I care to talk about. For our talking points, did have one. We always talk about this interest rates. I'm not going to go over what I've said about it in the past, but Joe T does come on. He comes on to our show today. Joe Terranova. He says, the momentum factor likes lower rates. So I don't have it pulled up right now, but you can pull up your sentiment cycle chart. Any of the generic ones does a good enough job. Right, it's almost like every host, again, on CNBC, as long as we can say, again, the market's going up. It doesn't mean this indice, doesn't mean this index, doesn't mean this company, doesn't mean this sector. It just means we can echo the sentiment of euphoria, of excitement, of jubilation. There's jubilation on the pitch, mate. And we're all just going to get excited because market's going up. I can look at you and be like, boys, the boys are back. We're back, bro. We're back. That's kind of the sentiment we're echoing, and it just seems like, again, we're in the locker room, we're getting hyped up for our sports game, and we're going to go win. And we're going to say, yep, the market's going up. Not this sector, not this indice, going up. And Joe T calls that the momentum factor. So again, you can see that on any one of those little charts. We drew one way back when. But as long as people can echo the euphoria of momentum, specifically in the stock market, it's just nothing's in our way. Nothing but tailwinds. No headwinds at all. We don't even need to be the bellwether. We don't even have to be the first fat cow to lead the sector. We can be the second one because with all of our tailwinds. But again, from a policy standpoint, this is what you see from Donald Trump, or again, any president throughout history that is saying, and Joe T did such a good job at saying, this point in history is the momentum factor, and it's like, and then you look at the presidency, why are they asking for lower rates? Because they want that momentum, that sentiment of euphoria of, hey, I just get on my portfolio and I see up 10% on my stock. And again, as David Faber pointed out again this morning, the U.S. is doing a really good job on their intel position with a good tweet from the president. That's such a great trading prospectus. Is buy something, be the most watched person, again, certainly in this country, and be a huge figure globally, and then pump a stock. I mean, that's just great being a great businessman. That's genuine value creation for the whole economy. It benefits your community. It creates new products and services that limit inefficiency. Because, again, profitability is pretty much, I won't say exclusively, but profoundly so, it's inefficiency limiting. That's where you get the most profitability. Or you don't reinvent the wheel. You don't really have new ideas. Sentiments that are echoed in entrepreneurship. You just make something a little bit better, which results in less inefficiency. But not the point. Joe T. Exactly. And the momentum factor likes lower rates. It has nothing to do with the Fed rate or their dual mandate of maximum employment and lowest inflation. It's so they can go to their friends and reflect the momentum factor. That is, it was just like I had to write it down. I wasn't really following anything. I just heard him saying this shit, and I was like, see, this is what I'm talking about, guys. And I didn't say it. Joe Terranova said it. The momentum factor. The market likes lower rates. Donald likes to see his friends get lower rates, and then the market react and go, yay. Nothing to do with maximum employment. Nothing to do with minimum inflation. It's just our friends are excited. So, again, obviously atrocious shit behavior. But, again, my whole life is fucking over because everyone in the United States of America is a fucking criminal. But Joe T. articulated that correct. That is exactly what I'm saying. And it's not my words. And it's completely true. But to the overall progression, he's talking about, what is the stimulus going forward? Specifically because, again, the viewership, most people investing in stocks, again, they want to hear that market's going up, not this industry, not this sector, just the sentiment. Market is going up. And so, but Joe starts talking, hey, what will cause momentum after earnings? And so, no, not a super big point or response, but that's just kind of the context of what they're talking about for the momentum factor, is just continued stimulus after earnings. But frankly, for like these big cap stocks with real revenues, real profits, real fundamental, real CapEx. I had so much agentic workflow with Claude this morning that I just ripped off CapEx today. I was just C-suiting it up. But I think the momentum cycle of the actual earnings, the 3 months, I mean, you get an earnings every quarter, right? So it's like, or every 4 months, 3 months. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Quarters are 4. Every 3 months. I'm an idiot. I'm a renard. But I think just the earnings report there's enough frequency. Every 3 months is enough frequency to continue the momentum. So I really don't think I wanted to push back about that specifically. I think 3 months has seemingly, for these big cap things, being enough stimulus for things to hang around. He also talks about just the price action itself being the stimulus, which we're in an environment where things that are dirt cheap are 15 times forward earnings. And so it's like you're in this environment where everything, the momentum, again, that's what I've been saying explicitly, the relationship between the price action and your own personal sentiment. You feel it immediately. And again, that is why everything's the cheap shit's 15 times forward earnings. But I don't think for the actual stimulus, I just think the actual earnings cycles or the earnings reports themselves are close enough that it stimulates stuff. Not a high conviction point, just something to respond to. We had that inflation number, 3.8%. Again, that was just, it took rocket science. It took the Artemis 2 crew that is definitely, like I said, definitely not the furthest that humans have gone in space. But we're just going to keep lying about everything, so I'm just going to keep rolling with the fraud. And so they did not go the farthest in space. Inflation did not come down. Our great Supreme Leader Donald doesn't give a shit. And it was not surprising at all that the inflation did not come down. And so we had eBay rejected GameStop's unsolicited buyout bid. And so Ryan Cohen, the CEO of GameStop, had a hilarious type of interview. Becky Quick's interviewing him, or I think it was Andrew Ross Sorkin, and then Becky's response got kind of like memed. It was like just Ryan Cohen, I think that's a guy's name, the GameStop CEO is talking, and Andrew's like, where are you going to get the financing, dude? It's just like, you got this letter, and he's just like, it's on the website. You can read on there's a website. It says Investors Relations. You can click on the link if you'd like, Andrew. And so that was funny. And Becky, there's a meme. Becky's like reacting. Is kind of funny. But eBay rejected that. I did trade eBay on that news. It was a small short. It was a trivial short profit, like $5. But I did short the announcement, which I think was this one. Just shorted it immediately at the open, short fade. Because again, there's nothing really to talk about on the dynamics. Some sort of stimulus, pre-market appreciation, short it, close it after the open. You can put a trailing stop loss if you want to think it's going to go lower. But again, typically the moves I'm playing are just the relief and they reverse. We executed that on SanDisk with a good little movement the other day from that 1600 pop. Again, we'll be watching. We're still watching this. This is our focus. But to overall, again, track the momentum progression as this trade happens. And so, did want to say that, like we said when we first started doing this, we did buy a Micron share at like 420. Well, 420. Blaze it. Let's call it 420. And then we closed that pretty much immediately. So that would have been a good just to point out something we did that we did not follow through with. So that would have given us, again, another 300, 400 back on our overall memory trade. We closed it because we were more confident on the downside. Yeah, that worked out. But overall, truly, I thought I managed that well for for a losing trade. We had our levels, we had our risk tolerance, we executed it. But there's nothing else really to say here. eBay rejects this bid. the letter. There was a formal letter I read. It was pretty brief. Just, hey, this offer didn't seem super legitimate in some sort of polite verbiage. The market didn't seem to take the offer super seriously. David Favor pointed that out today as well. But then we did have fat fuck Josh Brown talking about Netflix. Surprised he stopped eating. That's quite a surprise. But this was looking interesting to me, and I wanted to go over this just quickly from a technical perspective. And we have this gap up from $85. We have some good trading after that. We have an earnings. We gap down, and so a bounce specifically, like at the actual 85 level into yesterday. Like I said, this is just not the price overall price and price movement. Going up, 30% is 30%, 40% is 40%. This is just not the overall dollar figure, as we said earlier, is just not ideal. Just something that you immediately see and is like, let's look elsewhere. But from a technical perspective, bouncing off this 85 would have been a good call. And then for the overall good business consolidation potential demand, like I said, this I like. Caterpillar, that's had big appreciation, we liked earlier. Just commenting, bringing up stuff we've referenced in the past episodes. And so Netflix bouncing off 85, something I did have written down, didn't play it. Then I saw that absolute beached whale, Josh Brown, talking about it today. And so that is what I have written down. Really wanted to cover the Joe Terranova comments because it just highlights that it does not fucking matter. No one cares about Donald Trump's literally talking. I don't care about personal finances. There is no United States. I'm sitting here with no constitutional rights, and again, the death and destruction caused by not promoting science, which is directly articulated in the Constitution. And then any dick sucker like Luis Elizondo over there trying to say it's like there's laws that national security and this and that, which people are. I mean, that's why they've destroyed my life. They're wrong. They're flat out fucking wrong. But you can't control fucking kids in groups with more power than that. Nobody respects the law. This is such a Wild West time in fucking history, and it's just write everything down. Because these people still have like some sort of like moral, I'm doing something behind the scenes. But again, I got a bunch of content to catch up on. Keeping it financial for here as much as possible. Yeah, nothing else really to say for now. There'll be further clips until I upload this. And so that is what I have overall, kind of an overall down day. Datadog, take that back. We did want to cover technically Datadog, because like I said, catching some tailwinds, I think, from the memory core software and then memory. And then we have like a SaaS company, a data platform. I see nothing proprietary here. They do have a product where say, hey, look at us. You can see your data. But it's like, again, from analysis, data's in the past. You don't really need it to a large extent. But from a technical perspective, again, we have our typical stimulus beat earnings or just appreciation after earnings. Frankly, the beat wasn't that big. I mean, like 60% or 60 cents on 59 cents, 55 previously. They bring on some new company or customers. I see this as weak stimulus. Technically, again, our 2 earnings reports ago, we have the day after gap up, close up 1, 2, and then the trend reverses again on the 4th day. And so we're seeing eerily similar patterns, gap up 2 more, 3 days total. And so from this top right here, it closes where it trades here, trades a whole day right around that level, and then opens up and trades down. So from a technical reason in general, and then a stock historical reason, I don't see this partnership as being that stimulative. Could be completely wrong. Wake up and be down $1,000 and be like, sweet, I'm a great trader. But technically, look, there's a huge gap here. The stimulus for the overall price levels of this stock in comparison to the memory moves and to the software moves is nothing. And so I'm seeing this as a weak, fleeting tailwind, certainly for a gap fill. Like we said, 2 to 4 weeks is our prospectus. If we go in the opposite direction, probably we'll cut this pretty short. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll play it as we feel it, like we always do. But from a technical perspective, did want to point that out. It seems very similar to a previous earnings move. All of these other ups have filled, and to this stock specifically and in general, gap filling is a pretty consistent thing. But we will see. And then just overall, did not seem to be a big appreciation in relation to other moves. So I feel like this is fleeting. Of all the things we could short in relation to memory, software as a service is what we went with. And so I think this is a kind of a good trade. Moderate conviction. And so we will add tomorrow a little bit, maybe up to 15 shares, maybe up to 20. If we get some break towards the downside, if we start going in the other way, we'll probably cut it pretty quickly. We'll go off feeling. And so that is what I have for tonight, finishing up at 9:50 p.m., and we will check in later. Wednesday, May 13th, 9:25 p.m. What's up, everybody? Checking into the markets. You know, I'm a simple guy. Don't have constitutional rights, no career, no family. So, hey, I can't even trade stocks confidently because you know we're going to get extorted by the IRS. Again, don't have constitutional rights. Trying to trade some stocks. Hey, let's short Datadog. This will be a good one. And we are immediately into the red. And so one of these days, we're going to see green numbers on the screen in the first day or two. I have a vision. It is coming. That day is not today. And so checking back into the markets, didn't watch too much of any today's activity. To be honest, it was a lot of chores today. Mowed the grass. But a couple talking points, did watch some things. Major economic, political, geopolitical, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, is in Chinatown. Actual China with the Chinese. And so, big meeting over there. I'm sure about trade, politics, all of the major world events. What is going to happen with Taiwan? Dum. Is Micron and SanDisk going to continue their march to the moon? Let's see where I don't think they actually were up that much. Well, SanDisk, so we did have some divergence. I did want to note this. Not too much on the construction. Datadog's going a little bit in the wrong way. We'll get back to that in a second. But did want to point out SanDisk, again, both a little bit of divergence in SanDisk versus Micron. And so, still again at these big levels, really strong day overall sentiment. Pretty sure the S&P closed at all-time highs. We were up even a little after hours. Let's double check real quick. And so, yes, all-time high here. Let's check the Dow Jones, which I actually don't follow that much. Again, Pam Bondi. We're so close, Pam. We're so close. And then I just look at the QQQ. And so this is also up. Okay, just the NASDAQ, but I don't ever really type in NS. I don't even know what the ticker is off the top of my head. But regardless, we are at all-time highs. Overall sentiment very strong across the board. And so not looking super good for Datadog right now. But back to the divergence I wanted to point out is just up until now, again, we opened one share long Micron, shorted one share SanDisk. You can check the log whenever. We ended up closing that share long on Micron pretty much like within the next day or two, and then kept the short open, tracked the SanDisk trade, and then didn't really follow Micron all of that much. So now from just like the recent highs and even like the pre-market, which just for like an actual technical meaning like tracking standpoint of like data, like Thinkorswim, this software, the pre-markets aren't shown, which I'm not a big fan of. Like this was definitely trading to like the 1649 pre-market one of these days, 1671. That was on Sunday. Again, if you're checking the markets at like 9 or when was this? Sunday, yeah, like right around 8 p.m. And so it just kind of popped up. But point being is you don't see that reflected in the daily candles. So we have some additional commentary from our Datadog, Mr. Gus. But regardless, we have SanDisk kind of like, again, 1447, but a good 150, almost $200 if you count pre-market off of its trading high. Micron before had been trailing SanDisk to the appreciation. And so now we do have Micron. This is looking super bullish for a super upward pop to the top, right? Topology. Where's the top of our stock market? It's not nowhere in sight yet. But just wanted to point that out. Previously, again, another thought just came to my mind. I'll finish this one, then get to that. But we had SanDisk that was trading stronger to the upside, and now just in its total range, not total percentage return, not total dollar figure, but just, again, something that came to mind of tracking the sentiment in this progression. We had the same kind of, I didn't point it out, I was not doing the log, it was years ago, but I noticed this with Riot and Mara for Bitcoin's appreciation, where you had Riot start out really strong, and then a peak and then a trough, and then when Riot and Mara settled down, Mara, the next appreciation, went a lot stronger. Now I think at this point in time, Riot is currently, I want to say Bitcoin's 81,000. And yeah, so you see that Riot is, again, I'm not sure about overall market cap, but just, I don't think there was any additional share issuances. I don't think there was any, certainly no splits. But that was another one of those divergences where you have two effectively the same exact trade overall, meaning like memory or Bitcoin, or if you want to say cryptocurrency, but just an overall trade, and then two tickers that are effectively the same, might have some minor differences in overall infrastructure or business operations, but then they kind of like switch with no real reason, or again, no reason that's apparent to me. Just something to point out, no analysis to provide after that, just something I noticed, and certainly looking at Micron for its trading range, this looks like it can go to the moon tomorrow. But then again, I do want to point out, again, it seems, again, just the day-to-day sentiment, as we've pointed out previously and extensively, is like the biggest just switch, meaning we could feel really strong today, gap up, and it'd be, a continuance, or, wake up and it'd just be flat, wake up and it'd be down. But it just seems, whether good, bad, neutral, whatever position you have, long, short, it just seems the sentiment day-to-day chops up pretty solid. What happens today does not seem to, anything could happen tomorrow, right? It's common phrasing. But it does seem to be pretty true in the overall market conditions. And so Micron looking more bullish than SanDisk. No position on either. No, I have no real plan to take a position on these. Again, we were trying to take a short position on Datadog to get less of the exposure, just like stock with getting some substantial tailwinds. So we'll pop back on over here to Datadog. Again, like I said, we have the real Datadog, Mr. Gus, joining us. And so now we are breaking out into multi-year highs. But it's, so one of the talking points, I guess we'll just finish my analysis first and get to the responses to CNBC. And so overall, not like, there's no one it's not strong trading strong in terms of like substantial appreciation post the earnings. Big gap up. Technically, this gap is glaring. Short-term momentum, again, overall market conditions today was just blazing hot. So if we continue that into tomorrow, we'll certainly catch some tailwinds not in our favor on that end. But just for overall management, I have no real conviction elsewhere. I just want one of these, like I was feeling pretty good, as we pointed out. Again, this will be on another clip previously recorded yesterday. But again, a stock that this is not like brand new. We can go to a 10-year weekly. But this is, again, we have at least chart data into 2019. And so it got to a pretty decent high, again, broke the 200 mark back in 2022. And so it's not like a huge appreciation in its even given trading pattern. I would even have, like I said, still have a moderate conviction, but things that would have changed that would have been as if this was like a brand new stock. And so, and not to say that 7 years is a long time, but you do have a trading history where it's not just brand new, hey, price discovery, let's see what's happening. And so, seeming like a decent channel over the past 4 years, again, the market conditions for the memory AI sector right now is blazing hot, clearly. And so, stronger chance of appreciation past, previous highs. Certainly is more dominant than, 6 years ago. But point being is just we had a trading range, some sort of expectation. That's all I'm saying there. And then the recent kind of action within the past year, which I see as relevant sentiment. Anything past 3 years, I really don't. But gap up every single one filling. Again, with the current conditions, where are we at in this cycle of, I just Googled it and I don't want to mess with any sort of copyright, but just, your emotion chart of stock trading, everyone's seen it, any one of them works. You're kind of, again, I'm just trying to document more so the progress of that. And it's kind of like, it's like you don't know. And I personally think we're kind of close, because even with it's the moment you can see an end to the appreciation is when I think the price action appreciation breaks down. And so even with the strong earnings going into 2028, we'll even say is like kind of like late 2027, certainly 12 months. I'm saying like 18 months. And then 24 months kind of seems like I don't know. I'm going off my intuition and the sentiment I hear on the discussions. 2 years kind of seems like the longer end for an end to the buying. But then we have this discussion that I heard. I don't have who articulated it specifically, but just the company A, Microsoft, buys a memory from SanDisk, and they amortize it over so many years, and SanDisk realizes the profit immediately. I think we did point that out a couple days ago. But that seems to make like a sense to me as like why the momentum can continue into the short to medium term, again, meaning those 12 months to 18 months. Overall, I still think the total visceralness of the emotion, of the sentiment of being really appreciative, I think is always way like more than the price action reflects, meaning people seem to be like, this is going to be bullish, we're going to the moon, and then that always seems to be like after the price action. I like look at SanDisk, when did people really start talking about this? I want to say again, it wasn't until like this 400-ish break. And so you still have a huge, massive appreciation. It's not even, again, I could be wrong, but I don't remember seeing a bunch of headlines. Wasn't watching the market super closely, but always have it on. I mean, if you have exposure, you're always checking shit. And I just don't, from like the $20 up into like the 400s, even like the 200s, I didn't really see it like talked about. And so I'm thinking we're close. Again, I'm not going to take a position on these ones currently. We do have the Datadog, which I will hold into a decent depreciation as long as we don't go bonkers. Again, I do have a hard stop loss in open market hours for like extreme blowouts, like 275 plus in a given day. Obviously, I don't want it to go there, but it's the breaking of the into the future expectations beating earnings beating expectations. That dynamic is what I think. I mean, and I still think with the overall market investor maturity and just again forward looking, you're always going to blow out to the upside extremely hard. Is what I think. Again, that's my perspective, and I want to say that we're a little. Again, I'm always short biased, but even without a position, I want to say we're closer to the cycle breaking than not. Meaning, I'm gonna say by June. I'm saying it. June, we'll see serious depreciation. Or again, I'll say specifically to SanDisk, because we could have a blowout, and we have not had a blowout in any sort of technical overall volume price appreciation. That certainly hasn't happened. But I don't know. I'm saying by June we are certainly below 1,000. I don't. I want to take it back. I just don't think it's meaningful. Again, no conviction. Immediately taking back. But I do think we're further along in the overall emotion. I think it'll break down faster than the sentiment I'm perceiving from other people. Again, not meaningful to make a trade, but this is my trading vlog. I'm going to say what I want to say. So that's my overall take here. Again, Datadog's not looking super hot, but we'll just see what happens tomorrow. Anything under like 225, I'm not really concerned. We'll add another share, 2 or 5. I did check we are up again, just personal accounting. It was up like $1,560. So the SPYI closed out. Again, on the monitor tab here is still not synchronized with the realized on Charles Schwab, which still blows my mind. Why can't we get that synchronized? Charles Schwab seems like a relevant thing to do, but it doesn't show the yearly correct on the monitor tab here. It does on the realized. So we had like another $300 from that, but still missed out on the QQQIs obviously going bonkers, and so we would have had another, again, $700, $800 of appreciation here with another. So it would have been like 1,000 between the SPYI and the QQQI that we closed out. Again, with no real reason, like it's not like, with reason, but not like we're trying to get out of the fund. Just, we had capital appreciation. We had this big bounce, or again, I think bounce is an appropriate word there. And now we're just still ripping. We're going into year 4 of super gains. And then again, emphasizing the people that I see on CNBC that talk trading every day, whenever they're just like glad to say the market's going up, and it'll be like the S&P is up like 10%, which the 10% is 10%, but it's like, it doesn't, when I see like the moment, like the sentiment excitement at that level, I'm thinking like 25%, like a huge, like big jumps. Again, just my perspective. And so missed out on probably about $1,000, $1,100 of appreciation on these income funds. And again, we will miss the dividend if we're not back in them by the 21st, which I don't expect will be. Again, looking for some sort of drawdown. And so, but again, the time frames, I just have no opinion on the overall development of these companies with real revenues and what price to earnings should be, as we say, like every freaking day. So not going to spend too much more time on that at all. For the Trump and China thing, it was just funny. Jensen Huang, the great NVIDIA leader, when again all of mathematics for like indefinitely ever is on literally sitting on the internet. And so Carnival Land, human beings are still, committing super crimes, lying, cheating, and stealing, and everyone's too fucking stupid to do anything different. So that's always fun and exciting stuff. Another day of my life taken without any rights or acknowledgement of anything. Super fun, illegal stuff. But our great hero Jensen Huang, when he was done walking his dog today, he went out and rescued the mission. I think is that racism? Is that like, are we like culturally appropriating? It's like, hey, Xi Jinping, you see this one? It's kind of like you guys. What's up? I don't know. I thought it was funny. We did have the Senate confirm Warsh as the Fed chair. So we've gone through our congressional proceedings. Again, that is established by the United States Constitution. That is the same document that has Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, where it says you have the right to progress science with your writings and discoveries. Yeah, that's a fucking joke. But I guess that this part of the Constitution, like that, one of the sections over here works, and then this one over here doesn't, and then this one does sometimes, and then this one over here doesn't the other times always. And so it's really clear to all of our leaders and to all of the great adults that have guided our society into a really functioning, prosperous society. I want to thank you as a citizen, as a son, as a student, as well as an adult. I mean, it's myself. It's just been really inspiring to see all the hardworking Americans out there just every single day caring about their community, being competent. Forget community service. Let's just focus on how to spell our names. And where's spelling? Where does that come from? Oh, who knows? But Warsh has confirmed the Fed chair. Again, interest rates. Again, Joe T, that was such a classic. You'll see it on the clip before here. It's the momentum factor. As long as we can nudge our buddies and be like, hey, market's going up. Everyone's excited. Yeah. And then you turn on TV and it's just like, that has nothing to do with maximum employment or minimizing inflation. Bryn Talkington, this is what I was getting to earlier. She was talking about the memory space, or not the memory space, but the software space. And she was just like, nobody's excited to buy them. I wish that was true, Bryn. This is. I hope they're not excited tomorrow morning. I just thought this would follow. Again, 4 days after earnings. Again, it's coming from a perspective when I said, what trades am I have any conviction on, and I just look how the market behaves. It's like that seems to be the most predictable thing, and obviously we're going the other way. And so, but she was up there echoing, saying stuff like. Again, I think it was Microsoft specifically was the company in reference, but just overall software in comparison to the memory, and a lot of other people out throughout the day as well, and just the concentration of the momentum in these memory stocks is profound, and everywhere else it's kind of like, what's going on? And so, and again, we have a war going on. I feel like, and we've seen that numbers, again, our PPI just hit, that 3.8 we referenced in the last clip yesterday. But regardless, it was just one of the talking points. But it's just software in general. Like I said, I don't see first of all, I don't think, again, like language, like I remember being in 5th grade wondering why I have to take notes. When we look at all this data on here, it's like there's a flood of data. And so these software as SaaS companies, where's that buzzword? We stopped using that quite a bit. But the SaaS companies, like what differentiates a SaaS company? Like, can't you just take any jerk off from MIT and have them program a decent user interface, and then the algorithms take like 2 seconds to compile? And so it's like I don't see any differentiation in any sort of like data, like Datadog. Right? I don't see, the platform looks nice, but I don't see much value in the data itself. Sometimes, okay, so do I think big data has value? Yes. Do I think there's always a lot more data present than is like operative, because it's always like trailing in a lot of different domains? Yes. And so I just don't see it as like, what's the umph factor of a software company. And so that's why we moved over to Datadog, and then technically we have the big gap to kind of avoid the direct getting in front of a train if the momentum continues in the software space, which it very well could. Like I said, I think we're farther along in that cycle, but that I want to say sometime by June something ominous will happen in our price action. Could be completely wrong, and then I immediately balked because it was just like, I don't know. We'll see. I have no problem being wrong. Just giving you my commentary. So Brennan Company, we're talking about Microsoft and a little bit. I think Datadog came up, but wanted to give a shout out to Liz Taylor Young. I saw you come back up. What's up, girl? What's up? You see that? Wow, a lot of love to be making in that bay. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that was another important economic talking point to bring up for today. So that is what I have. This will be at the end of a other clip, as we said like 5 times. Wednesday, May 13th, 9:46. We will see you tomorrow.